Hey everyone, hope everyone is good and in good health. I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes to join in, get started here. Let me share my screen and then we'll start. Hello, welcome. Let's give everyone some time. And let's see. Hey Lee, how's it going? Connor, good evening to you, my brother. How's everything going? I can also go through any questions you have in the meantime until people start joining in. Lee, yes, I know. It's this market is like this is like probably one of the most difficult crypto market cycles I think I've ever had and I've ever seen. Can you guys all hear me clearly? Okay. All right. Hey Adam. Good morning, brother. How's it going? It's good you joined. It's good to have you here. All right. 10:31. We hear you, Chad. All right, so everybody's here. Alaikum salam, Muhammad. Good to see you, brother. Oh, you're welcome. I just thought it was a good time to do a stream because I posted like 6,000 investment thesis yesterday and I posted quite a few trades. So I think what I want to go through today is I want to just provide like a broad market overview on how I feel the market's going and then share my thoughts and also go through the AI agent investment thesis and then a decentralized science investment thesis. And then I want to also go through all the questions that everyone's posted. So there's quite a few questions. And so I want to make sure we have enough time for them. Today's a good day. Hey, Rania. Welcome. It's good you joined. That's the main reason I tried to do it earlier today was for everyone in Europe and the Middle East and Asia to join. Hopefully that works. It's a little bit early for some folks, but I think hopefully we can make it work during lunch hour. Okay, so I think we can get started. Let me just share my initial view on how I'm seeing the market. So to be completely honest with you, my theory has not changed. I feel like an optimistic scenario is we stay within 90 to 105,000 for the foreseeable future for the next 2 to 6 to even 8 weeks, even 12 weeks, until the US Federal Reserve, which is responsible for monetary policy in the United States, adjusts its ways and stops selling so much off its balance sheet. Okay, and what I mean by that, and let me just, this is why I like to do the live streams, is I can actually show you exactly what I'm referring to. So when you look at balance sheets, so I have a whole section here that I track, and I want to just have it where you can see it across all the different countries. See, these are all the individual country-based level balance sheets. And if you go to the US BBS, so you should be able to see United States Bank's balance sheet. Now, why this is helpful is this allows you to be able to just very quickly see whether or not the balance sheet is growing or is it contracting. Okay, so that's one thing that you can look at. Like that's actually very, very helpful to be able to see, is it expanding or is it contracting. And then another value is, show you now, is this WALCL. So this one. This is very, very helpful, and I've posted about this many times in the past. Why this is helpful is because if you add in the price of Bitcoin, what you'll notice is, let me just try to keep it very simple here. The US balance sheet that the US Federal Reserve manages, you want it to be expanding. You don't want it to be contracting. You want it to increase, you don't want it to decrease. The reason for that is because you want the US Federal Reserve to inject capital and liquidity into the market. You don't want the US Federal Reserve to be extracting and withdrawing money from the market. Because if you have more available capital, you have more liquidity, you have businesses that are able to access lines of credit at very affordable rates, you have businesses in a position to be able to expand and grow and increase their workforce and build products and adjust their prices as needed and participate in the economy. That's the entire goal of a business, especially for-profit businesses need to work this way. Now, if you have those conditions, then that works really, really well for risky assets because people are willing to take more risks across that continuum, right? Across that risk curve. And the more liquidity, the more capital is flowing, the more optimistic the sentiment is in the market. And the more people are willing to spend, the more people are willing to enjoy life. And they're going to be much more willing to go across that risk curve and be willing to take on a punt like and bet onto the cryptocurrency sector, right? So this is why I keep harping on this. I've been talking about my view on the macroeconomic situation for years, and I've said many times that we are invariably going to experience a recession. There's no question about it. But does that mean we just stop all type of capital deployment and we freeze all assets and we don't take any risks? No. I mean, that to me, I will never understand that fear and that gloom and doom type of mindset. I don't subscribe to that mindset. I think that mindset is reserved for our grandparents. And that's it. Like we're all young men and women. We should be able to take on some risks and we should be able to manage our positions properly. And we've proven that. Like we literally just did 100x on multiple positions, right? From the lowest entry and even from the highest entry, it was still at 35x. So would you rather have a 20 to 35 to 100x on some small position? Or would you rather have subscribe to the doom and gloom kind of, perma bear, ultra pessimistic mindset, always just stack up cash and, fall to inflation and never deploy any capital, right? I don't want that. So I want to take risks. I want to be able to make as much as I possibly can when my metrics are hit. My metrics were hit in November. That's why I've been investing nonstop for 3 months. I haven't stopped. I have no cash left. And what I've been doing is I've been putting capital into the market. And when the position is profitable, I de-risk, I take out my initial capital, I take some profit out, and then I recoup that money, bring it back into my bank and into like my pool of funds. And then I look for the next opportunity. When I've done this so many times, I did this with Top Hat, I did this with Clank Fund, I did it with a Clankster recently, I did it with Sui AI, I did it with like we were starting to do it. Remember with Sydney, we did it with Kirk, we did it with Peanut. I've done it countless times. Now I want it to keep going up, but it's just such a good feeling to take out the initial capital. Like I literally will urge all of you to please do that. It feels so good to go up 2x, 3x, and you take out your capital. It's the best feeling in the world. And not all the time. It doesn't always materialize the way you want. Like with DAIO, right? The decentralized autonomous artificial intelligence system. Like I took out my capital after it went up, and then it plummeted. Right? It was like a pseudo soft rug pull, but I'm out. I took out my capital. It was fine. It was a good ride. I still have the rest in. If it materializes, it materializes. I'm not going to get stressed out about it because I already took out what I put in, and then that allowed me to buy other positions and like DeSci and like other narratives that I really like and that I respect. So ultimately, what my view is I'm just not expecting fireworks until we have some balance sheet normalization to a steady state. And what I mean is I don't need quantitative easing. Okay. Obviously that's like the ideal, but at the bare minimum, I need steady state monetary policy by the US Federal Reserve that will stabilize the balance sheet, is to just stop selling so much because they've just been dumping. I mean, they are dumping everything they possibly can, right? And we had a small microeconomic stimulus back in March of 2023 around the regional banking crisis, if you remember that. But then that just reversed, right? And that was a trap, and then just continued down. Now, the good, potentially pseudo promising news is that we're hitting some support. We're hitting some support. There is definitely some support around 7 trillion. Okay. That there's no question about it that there's definitely some historical support around this level. Now, this takes us to post-COVID balance sheet. So there's still a lot of room, right, to get back to pre-COVID balance sheet levels. Um, but the economy is strong, labor market is strong, people are staying in their positions longer, which is not particularly strong and unencouraging, but it shows that there's some trepidation and hesitation and some reluctance in looking for work elsewhere because it's difficult to find work right now. And all of that market data is showing this, right? It's showing this phenomenon. It's coming through. Now, the main thing is I really need this to stop. I need them to stop dumping. If they don't, then yeah, absolutely, Bitcoin is very likely going to correct back down to 78,000. There's no doubt in my mind. But they've already started slowing down just a little bit. You could see it's slid the slope, right? The steepness of the slope is not as strong, right? It's starting to finally stabilize. As I felt like it was finally stabilizing, they dumped more. That usually, could be potentially the beginning of a bottom, but it's just too hard to say. It's too hard to say. So I'm keeping a very close eye on this, and I need this bleeding and this absolute macro carnage of a balance sheet dump of them just liquidating all of their treasury and um, just sucking out the capital from the market, right? Because that is the best way for price to correct and for inflation to be tamed. That's the entire intent. By design, this is what they're doing. Now, that's how I see the macroeconomics. Now, do I expect a recession the next month? No, I don't. And I've shared this many times. Unemployment is still hovering around, 4%. Like it's definitely considerably higher than it was a year ago and 2 years ago. It's still not anywhere near concerning levels. Right? Like when you look at prior prior recessions, you'll see that it's really not. It's nothing to be concerned about. You know. Let me change this to red, so it's like more. It's more doomsday. So you see, like it's we're not we're nowhere near like where it needs to be, or historically it's been in the past. Like in the past, when you see recessions, you experience unemployment absolutely spiking, right? We're near historic lows. Like, we're literally almost at we're at the lowest level that we've been for 25 years, a quarter of a century. We're at our lowest levels right now, despite the rapid expansion of robotic processing and hyper engineering and pseudo AGI and artificial intelligence and on all of these proclamations that everyone is making. We're still at near quarter of a century lows. And if you go behind that, the time that we were above 4% was or below 4% was in 1970. So like I, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about now. There's something to be concerned about in the future, 100%. And I've shown this. I've shown about the rapid rate of delinquency rates. You don't want commercial companies and banks and investment agencies all defaulting on their loans. You don't want delinquency hits. You don't want consumers, already crushed 2.5%. Right? Think about that. That's 100% increase in 3 years. You don't want that. You definitely don't want it to be this high. Um, you don't want credit card loans spiking in terms of delinquency and default rates. You don't want mortgages not being paid, but this is not rising yet, right? It's still at 1.75. So there are long-term concerns and midterm concerns, but not concerns in a short term when I look at delinquencies and debt and macroeconomic and econometric variables that I'm looking at. Well, I'm just not seeing it. I'm seeing people are spending like mad men and women, and they're not stopping. And this is exactly what the U.S. Federal Reserve is trying to stop. Um, I mean, look at employment levels; they're continuing to rise. We finally saw a little bit of a drop here, but nothing cataclysmic, nothing that is something that we have to take care of immediately. So that's how I'm seeing the economy. And then when I look at Bitcoin, I genuinely mean it when I say that I'm just not expecting, that kind of euphoric mania until we get out of um, quantitative tightening and we stop experiencing such bearish, hawkish economic monetary policy. Like there's no other way of looking at it. I mean, let me delete all these so we can like truly clear it. But we're basically range bound. We've been range bound for the last 5 weeks. Like we're stuck in between 90 to 105,000. My goal is for us to continue staying there, but if we don't, if we break this level of 92,000, this is such a critical level for us because this was during the post presidential announcement of Trump securing his presidency. This was the first true level of support that's been held. Okay. Ever since we had this massive, incredibly bullish, high volume spike since November 5th, since the election, we haven't revisited those levels. So we have a huge amount of dead space here between 69 and all the way up to 92,000. So I don't want to revisit that range. I ideally don't want this level to be breached. Now, when you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's being accumulated quite aggressively when you look at traditional BTC and ETFs. So institutional accumulation, you have whale accumulation, you have retail accumulation, but the sentiment is still quite low. Interest is low. Social media engagement and interactions are low. Blockchain adoption metrics are dropping. Total value locked is finally taking a pretty steep decline. So overall, you're seeing definitely some concerning items, but nothing catastrophic and nothing that worries me per se, except for the balance sheet. We really need the U.S. Federal Reserve to stop trying to reach their goal of 3.9%. So it's like they're trying to get to 2.9%, and we're not there yet. And they're worried that we're going to have another kind of hyperinflationary year or some kind of resurgence in inflation, and we don't want that, right? But that's how I'm seeing Bitcoin. It's just continuing to hold this level, and then when I look at the 4 hour, it's terrible, right? I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, I'm like grappling at straws here, but like potential break, but I don't. It's too early to say because I said the same thing here. It was a false breakout. See here, false breakout. Potentially the third time's the charm, but now it's retesting it. If it actually defends it, that would be amazing. But it's only on the 1 hour, and we're going to be tied with the S&P 500. There's no question in my mind that as Bitcoin has matured, it's going to continue to tag and be pegged to the S&P 500 equities market, but even more importantly, the Russell 2000, because the Russell 2000 is the 2000 smallest microcaps and small caps in traditional stocks like equities, and they're quite volatile and they're quite risky, right? So I would say that those are a lot more comparable to crypto. But from what I'm seeing, crypto is actually outperforming. It just broke the all-time high and breaking above and being valued more than the Russell 2000 index, which is actually pretty amazing. But we're not there yet with the S&P 500. We haven't broken the all-time high yet. We're very close, but we continue to get rejected at that level. But if we once we do, that I would be even more bullish. Like that's the thing that I was looking for, and it's one of my metrics in the scorecard that we talked about. And the same thing with the Nasdaq, we haven't broken it. We're getting so close, but we haven't broken the all-time high, which means that crypto hasn't sufficiently outperformed the Nasdaq and hasn't sufficiently outperformed the S&P 500 for us to break prior all-time high levels. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. I mean, I can keep going. There's like a million variables that I'm tracking, but we did break the all-time high when you account for the M2 money supply, which is good. This is a very important variable that I've been tracking forever that I kept talking to you about. And we've been rejected 7 times before, right? One, two, three, four, five, six, and then a minor rejection here off the descending trend line. But then we broke up. So I think overall we're okay. I'm also not seeing a huge amount of cash withdrawal or capital leaving the market, because you don't want that, and I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing actually the all-time high level breaking. So, um, do algos dial in those metrics, crypto and SPX? I don't think so. I mean, these are just custom metrics that I created that I find to be very helpful, especially that crypto and traditional equities are inextricably linked and tied now, as because they're both considered risk on assets, especially the smaller cap ones. So I'm sure some algorithms are definitely considering that relationship and seeing whether or not they should go long and short and vice versa. But I just like to use that metric for being able to tell whether or not where we are in the market, and it's an important variable for the scorecard, because if you look at the scorecard, um, there's so many threads now open. It's like crazy. But if you look at the scorecard, everything was green except for four metrics, the most important ones. So these ones. So metric 14, 44, 45, and 47. 14, 44, 45, 47. So these ones. So 14 is altcoins still haven't shown sustained strength in outperforming Bitcoin. And that's a very simple metric. It's this metric here, which is being able to just say total three, which is all of crypto, um, excluding Bitcoin, and and you wanted to, and excluding the noise of stablecoin USDT, and you want it to outperform Bitcoin, right? And this has been one of the most simplest and most effective metrics to track strength. Usually, in the past, when we've broken out of that trend, we've only retested it once in 2017, where we had like a 3-week reversion back down to the mean, and we could potentially experience the exact same thing now, but we didn't experience that in 2021. So every market cycle is unique, but there's definitely commonality, right? There's absolutely commonality, because we predicted this break here. It didn't work in October. And then we said, okay, that was the first attempt. Now the second big attempt, and it succeeded, right? And this was my target. If you remember, this was my terminal target zone, and it hit right on the money. So, but you see, that's why you can't just use one metric. So you can't just use one number. That's why I like to have this composite scorecard. This has been so incredibly helpful for me to know where we are. So this is one metric, and then another metric was the 44, 45. So 44, right? Crypto outperforming S&P 500 and setting all-time high. That hasn't happened. And then 45, crypto outperforming Nasdaq and setting all-time high, hasn't happened. Those are the two that I just showed you. And then the last one, global's balance sheet expanding or steady state sideways, hasn't happened yet. So 14, 44, 45, and 47, those are the four metrics that haven't hit yet. Those are the only remaining ones until the altcoin mania, in my humble opinion. According to my analysis and research, those are the things that we're waiting for. These other ones are more just to see how stretched we are, because you'll see this phenomena come in when we're at, max opportunity, right? The last like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we know a market top is coming in. And then I'll add, thank you, brother. I'll add a lot more so we can know which ones to look at to spot the tops. Because I like to consider that I'm pretty good at spotting when is a good time to take profit and when it's time to de-risk. And I think for me, honestly, one of the simplest metrics to know, because a lot of you have asked me, like, when should you think the top would be in, and when would the top be in? Honest to God, this is like one of the simplest ways that I would say is a very good way, right? Is you have this arc curve, and whenever we're approaching the top of it, and this is obviously retrofitted back to prior peaks, but it's so accurate. Like I feel like this is why this is one of the reasons I'm my first peak is going to be 115 to 130, and it's right here, right? So I think if we're approaching 115 to 130 is the time that I would definitely consider strongly de-risking and taking profit. I'm still predicting multiple tops. So a lot of you have asked what would be reasons for that. I'll do a whole write up on it when I have time. But my theory is that, and I shared this with Alex, and he was like, "Oh, this would be like sensational." And I mean, yeah, I mean, I would be in heaven if this actually happened. But this is one potential scenario: is we have Trump coming into the presidency. People then realize that it's going to take a lot longer for a lot of his goals and his campaign promises to materialize, and there's going to be a small correction at that time, just like there was the correction around the Bitcoin ETF, like going live and trading beginning. The same thing. There's always a correction in post-halving years, like in 2017, in 2021, January. They all go down like around 15 to 22%, 23%, right? So we're right there. We're experiencing some correction here. How low we go is anyone's guess, but like I hope we don't breach that 92 level on a weekly basis. We may wick below it. I just don't want to close the weekly below 90 to a 92. I want to stay above that. Now, so the first peak I believe is, if I had to take a guess, if we see quantitative, pseudo quantitative easing or some kind of normalization, and we see them stop selling so much, hopefully we'll have like a peak maybe in like, anytime between like March, April, May. That could definitely be the case. But regardless of exactly when, because I don't like to try to speculate on timeline. I think that's just a fool's pursuit. I think it's much more important to focus on the metrics, and when there's significant resistance. That's why I felt very strongly we had a pretty strong top in March, and I de-risked. I should have de-risked a lot more. I don't think I de-risked enough. I only de-risked like just a few percent. I should have de-risked a lot more. And I believe that we'll have a top then, and I think we'll have a pretty steep correction. And then I think there's going to be other catalysts, like potentially the Donald Trump announcing that he is truly, in fact, creating a global reserve, and he's going to piggyback off the back of the Bitcoin Act, and he's going to accumulate, and that's going to force other countries to follow suit, and they're all going to be racing to accumulate as much Bitcoin and as Ethereum as possible, and potentially Solana or just Bitcoin at the beginning. But that'll draw a huge amount of interest and legitimacy and approval to the sector. And then another catalyst could be, and that could potentially drive us up to the next market cycle, like new top. And then we'll have another multi-month correction. And then maybe towards the end of the year, and maybe that takes us towards the end of the year. And then as that's tapering down, maybe we have a Solana ETF being approved. Maybe that pushes it a little bit higher in anticipation for that. And maybe that marks the final top. And maybe the final top is in like the beginning of Q1 of 2026. My prediction from a long time ago was October 2025 to January of 2026. But um, that to me is like the absolute peak market cycle top. But I still believe that we're going to have multiple tops. I don't think this is the final top. I think if we end up having a scenario where we just continue to go sideways until February, and then we go up and we hit it in like April, May, I don't think that concludes the cycle. I think what's going to end up happening is we end up maybe going back down 30, 40%, and then going back down to like 100, and then we try again, and then we end up finishing in like January of 2026 at like a considerably higher level, maybe 150, potentially even breaching this and wicking above it like we did in the past, and then finally that marks the top, right? And if we get lucky, we could potentially have a third one that continues going into mid 2026. Unlikely, but it's still a possibility. So that's how I see the market. Um, Now, what else? I can keep going through any asset you want, but I think let's start going through the questions. So, I always make that mistake. I always like don't make enough time to make sure that I have the questions, and the stream ends up becoming like 4 hours long. Let me. What's up, Hammer? What's going on, brother? And I will, Adam. I will definitely draw your attention to when that point in the cycle comes. Okay, brother. So let's go through these questions. Mm, I'd appreciate if you could dive into the DeSci space a little, maybe chat about some of your highest conviction picks. So, the reason why I believe that AI agents and DeSci, I think, are the future, and why I've been investing in them, and why I've been so bullish on AI agents for, without exaggeration, 3+ years now, is because every single time that we've had something that was significantly bullish in crypto, it's come from a macro trend that came from in real life, like native analog that then transferred into crypto, right? So for me, AI agents have been absolutely on fire in real life, right? It was 75% of the new businesses that have been startups that have been incubated by the Y Combinator. And like it just, you have to look at this. Like you look at all of the accelerators and um, small startup agencies that have been incubating and accelerating and funding new startup companies. 75% of them have been related to AI agents. Like just let that sink in, right? And that's been the phenomenon for the last 12 months. And even prior to that, it used to be 10%, then it grew to 20%, then it grew to 50%, and then now it's three quarters of those businesses, right? And so of course there's a natural progression of that transferring over to crypto, right? There's no question about it. But why I love it in crypto, in there's only three things in crypto that I believe in long term. I truly mean this. And I've said this from the beginning. One is obviously its monetary applications, like in Bitcoin being a decentralized currency. You can't seize your assets, you can't freeze your funds, you have complete decentralized control over the network. It's phenomenal. Like that's application one. Application two to me is being able to have AI agents, like to be able to have a fully autonomous system run not in a centralized cloud like Google Web Services or Apple Web Services or Amazon Web Services. No cloud infrastructure should be centralized if you truly want to have a fully autonomous, fully functioning, DAO or an AI agent DAO or an AI DAO, right? So that's like a second one. Another one though that I'm really liking is decentralized science. And the reason I like it, and obviously DeFi is grouped in, but the reason I like decentralized science is that first of all, it's a very, and I mean this respectfully, and I know many of you are physicians and scientists and chemists and physicists, and but I and there's a few doctors of pharmacy and like pharmacological science. So please take what I say like respectfully. But you always ask me to be on, and I'm always going to be sincere with you. There's a huge amount of corruption, like big pharma, right? And there's a huge amount of centralized control and cartel managed supply of funds. And a lot of the most brilliant and novel ideas don't come to light and don't materialize into commercial products and commercial applications until way longer than they should, right? So that's problem one. Problem two is that resources are usually centered around like geographical limitations and people who are in like close proximity to the project and to the pursuit. And then three is people who donate to a lot of scientific advances and pursuits are apprehensive in donating sometimes to the wrong party or to the wrong institution, and they don't want to be tied to those products. So you can't really contribute in a concealed way, and it's always like your funds are earmarked for something else, and you don't have transparency over the funds. You don't know where the funds are actually in fact going, whether or not they're lining the pockets of like rich executives, or are they fueling some other pursuit, are they actually leading to mass market commercial applications of something that could be very helpful, like a vaccine, right? We don't know, right? So why DeSci is intriguing to me is because it provides like the full provenance. So this is like I've always talked about this is the full transparency of where your funds are going. So if you give $100,000 towards a biological DAO, you can actually transparently track every single dollar where it's going, who's consuming it, who's buying it, who's selling it, how is it being used, how is it being utilized in some way in some type of scientific study or project, right? So, and I love that. I love the fact that you can tokenize intellectual property. So that's like another big reason that I love this whole IPTS movement. So the first time that you can actually have tangible, licensable, ownership over intellectual property of any type of scientific discovery that could be a considerable breakthrough that then becomes a commercial product, you can get a percentage of that revenue. So think about how amazing that is. Like think about how amazing that is. And I'll talk about my concerns after. So those are two very strong points. Third point is you can fundraise using crypto as a vehicle in the most effective way possible, especially when we've seen like projects that I've mentioned that I'm buying and projects that I've mentioned that I haven't bought yet, that it's just fascinating. Like when you look at biohub, the biohub ecosystem as a whole, we've never had that in the past, right? When I've loved DeSci, I love DeSci as a whole, but there wasn't a huge amount of buzz around it. But now when you look at the biohub, right? So bio XYZ. So this used to be almost like a Web3 accelerator and like a support community, and now it's evolved to its own, standalone platform. And what's beautiful what they're doing is we've never had this much buzz around biological and scientific advancements. We've never had this much buzz. Like we've never DeSci was never as popular as it is now. And I've talked about this. I talked about this when I showed you the popularity, and it's not just popularity when you look at the term. It's also popularity. You look at cumulative search volume as well, right? And we just continue to break all-time high levels here, right? So, like to me, decentralized science has never been as popular as it is now, right? And I love that. So you have this macro narrative that's bullish towards this bio ecosystem. You have all of these tentacles of companies and DAOs that are tagged to it and attached to it that are all working on their own respective projects and entities. And then each of those projects is tied to real universities, real scientists, real researchers who are trying to solve real problems, some of which are very easy to understand, like trying to reduce the rate of Alzheimer's, trying to build some type of immunization or preemptive vaccine that you can consume that allows you to protect yourself from being experiencing that type of condition, right? Or one is like trying to delay menopause because there's like postmenopausal complications and like consequences of experiencing that as a woman. So one entity is trying to fix that. Another one is trying to run experiments to be able to augment and initiate and like stimulate natural hair growth, right? There's all these problems that they're trying to fix, and they're easy to understand. Like it's something that even my 7-year-old son will be able to comprehend. It's not rocket science to understand that you don't want to have neurodegenerative disease or you don't want to suffer from, early onset X, Y, and Z condition, right? So these biological DAOs, it's simple to understand. We also didn't have the DAO infrastructure that we have now that we had back then, right? What we have now is much more established, much more battle tested, and there's a huge amount of macro interest that we just didn't have, right? Back then, we didn't have that type of interest, 5 years ago. It just wasn't there, right? It's 10 times more popular now than it was back then, right? So bear that in mind. Now, how do you invest, right? How can you possibly get some exposure to this? Easiest way, least intrusive, least complicated way, just buy the buyer protocol, right? But again, I want to do better than my grandfather, right? Like I don't want to buy a $2 billion asset. I'm not interested. Everyone has their own prerogative and their own investment plan. Personally, I don't like to buy anything above $1 billion. I don't. Of course, I'll continue to accumulate Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Doge. Like the rest just makes me yawn. Like SUI, of course, that's part of your core five. Doesn't matter. Those are not interesting to me. Like those are such easy bets long term, right? I'm just not interested in anything above 2 billion. I want something that actually has a high probability of moving the needle. So I'm looking for like fundamental strength. I'm using clear utility. I'm looking for like macro wins coming in and driving interest and popularity all-time highs. I want to see like real users, real usage, etc. Right? So yeah, easiest way is just buy the bio. It's not rocket science, right? Just buy the token, and it's not even in the top 100, which is strange. Should be here, unless it's gone down again. I think it's gone down. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Holy mother. It's gone down 34% in the last 7 days. So this is perfect. There's no better time to buy a DeSci than now. So it's at 600 million, right? But its fully diluted valuation is 1.7 billion. So this is definitely the easiest way to get exposure. Okay, so that would be considered position one. Position two is you can get some exposure to. I used to have Origin Trail. I had a lot of Origin Trail that I bought back in like 2018, 2019, and I held it all the way to 2021. And I sold it at this price. I should have kept it because it exploded to like $2.50 in November of 2021. I'll never forget that because I had such a big position that I would have done a lot. I did really well, but I would have done a lot better if I had just waited. But this is a legit project. Origin Trail. The problem is it's already listed on Coinbase. It's fine. Like I'm trying to find projects that are not listed on Coinbase, BitGet, Kraken, right? I want all the coins that are not listed on these platforms. My specialty and what I love to focus my time on is less than 10 million, less than 20 million, less than 10, preferably even less than 5. But that also comes with a huge amount of risk. But that's where you're going to get your 10 to 100x returns, I think. But you're also going to be experiencing deep, deep drawdowns. Like if Bio Protocol is down 34%, you can guess what's going to happen with the other smaller caps, right? Like they are going to experience even steeper declines, right? I mean, you can see. I mean, look at this. Like you can see, they've actually like held pretty well. That's what's interesting. See, like the DAOs are down only a few percent, and some of them are not even down. But Cryo's down 3%. There's no volume, so it's not a very representative sample. But the point is I'm not expecting these DAOs to do much until bio improves, and I'll go through that. But to answer the first question is like, how do we get some exposure? So one way to get exposure is you buy bio. Second way is you expose yourself to the biological DAOs, and like that's what I listed here, where there's 3 opportunity areas, and I tried my best to try to keep this very simple, but one is bio, second is biological DAOs, and I've already written my thesis on every single one of these. These are the ones that I like, right? I didn't talk about Athena, but I like it as well. But my favorite ones are Vita DAO, Hair DAO, Valley DAO, right? Vita DAO is just too expensive for me. It's at 120 million. But I like the other ones, right? Because then you're getting broad sector exposure across a group of projects, right? The third way to get exposure is to just buy the projects outright. So what I have done, right, is I have decided that I want to have exposure to opportunity area 2 and opportunity area 3, which is getting exposure to Hair DAO, Valley DAO, Cryo DAO, Cerebrum DAO, and Psi DAO. And I'm definitely going to try to participate in Qtopia or Long COVID Labs, or especially quantum biology. This one I'm particularly interested in. Not launched yet, not tokenized yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it. And then I've also bought DeSci, crypto native DeSci projects. So like Worm, CRISPR AI, right? I'm positioning myself to burn liquidity pool tokens from CRISPR AI Meteora DEX liquidity pool. If you burn it and you do it and you submit a form before Saturday and you show them that you're able to at least bring some educational awareness and attention towards nuDAO and CRISPR AI, then you'll be eligible to go on a DAOS Fun on nuDAO and to be able to buy tokens. Now, if what I said didn't make any sense at all, just ask, because as I'm saying it, it sounds funny. That sounds really weird. But if it's not clear, just ask, please. And let's see what else. Lending Rocks. Who's Lending Rocks? Who are you, brother? I've seen that name somewhere. Yeah, markets having a hard time. Have to jump off. Okay, Anya, no problem. So That's how you get exposure. Okay. So hopefully that answers that question. Now, um, I'd like to understand the worst scenario that could happen in the current market and the possible strategy to prepare a plan B with assets. I want to have an understanding of the bearish scenario, how we can train on which coins are available. I think I've answered that. So that was literally my first answer, where I covered optimistic scenario stayed 90 to 105, bearish scenario, which is more pessimistic, brings us back down to 78, and potentially even lower because we don't really have much support between 90 to 69, right? That really is like the lower bound of the worst case scenario in my experience, but uh, that's just how I see it. Now, I know HAD is one of your favorite coins. Is it technologically superior, inferior to virtuals? I don't think you can say it's superior, inferior. To be honest with you, the base market chain, the base blockchain is layer two that's running on top of Ethereum virtual machine. The Ethereum virtual machine is considerably more technologically advanced than the Solana blockchain, and smart contract programmability on the Ethereum virtual machine um, is, I would say, superior for sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean that within the realm of AI agent frameworks, which is what Virtuals created and what Top Hat created, that applies, right? Because a lot of what's being done is being done in Python, and you can see that, and you can see that in or in TypeScript, or they're using some platforms like in Solana, they're using Rust. And to me, Rust is the future of software development and software engineering, and um, that's what so that gives you an edge. So it's almost like a pros and cons of both. I think what Virtuals has done is is incredible. Like they're the first, and the reason I am so, and I'll show you. I mean, look at this. It's incredible, man. I mean, they did an unbelievable job of branding themselves as being the de facto AI agent leaders, right? I mean, it's just so hard to look at anything. It literally looks like a multi-decade S&P 500 like chart, right? Where it's just been literally up only since late September, and it's pretty incredible. So price wise, I would say if we don't hold $3, that's not good, right? Because there's pretty much absolutely no support all the way down to $2, and then the back down to $1. I mean, look at this. This is so incredibly consistent, like increments of a dollar every single time. Just strange. I don't think I've ever seen this. You really don't want to go down the. To me, I would say during the bear market, we probably will go back down to 50 cents. Like, there's no question. That's usually what happens to these, even lower. They go down to levels that we'll never see again. But let's not even talk about that for now. I would say Virtuals looks good, looks strong. It's in a deep corrective phase right now. I don't think AI agents are. I think they're going to have a considerably harder time having a resurgence if Virtuals is not doing well and outperforming BTC, ETH, right? I would say at minimum. Um, right now, it's really in like deep correction. Same thing. So to me, this is like the representative AI agent, coin. But what I think they did really well is brand themselves as being a platform and an open source framework that everyone can use and build on. And I love that. I love the way they did everything. Then now they're also potentially considering going multi-chain, and then now they're also going to open up the treasury for each project. So they're going to have tokens that each issuing AI agent project is going to be able to tap into and use for marketing and advertising. That's amazing. I don't know what else can you possibly what else can you ask for than that? I mean, that's just sensational, you know? Um, and then they also have a proprietary gaming framework through Game, right? And so they're creating, to me, the AI agents are the equivalent of a layer one blockchain. So the reason I'm so bullish on them, why I've been investing so much time and effort and capital towards it, is because the way I interpret it all is that if virtuals already shows that the market is willing to absorb a $5 billion valuation for virtual. Okay. So if the market's willing to value virtual's protocol as being 5 billion, and that means that would make, based upon usage and mind share and level of activity, it would make Top Hat and Sui AI and Hold Station considerably undervalued long term. Long term, because the market's already priced that they're willing to accept a market valuation of 5 billion plus minimum. We're not even in the altmania phase. So to me, I don't see how virtuals can't hit 20, 30, $40. I mean, just as outrageous as that sounds. I don't even think it's unfathomable for it to hit 100 billion, because in prior market cycles, layer one blockchains that were leading hit 100 billion, right? Without any kind of considerable effort, but it came through booms and busts, and it wasn't just all in unison. There was some capital that was shifted from one project to the other, and then they would push the next one. So if we see virtuals, when it breaks 5 billion again, which I believe it very strongly it will, then I believe it's going to rise all the boats with it, and they're all going together. So to me, that's why it's so hard for me not to feel that this is like a multi-generational opportunity in Top Hat and Sui AI. And the reason I like Hold Station is because Hold Station is a leading AI marketplace and launchpad with its own framework on ZK blockchain. So I want to buy the leading AI launchpad marketplace and framework that's being used within that ecosystem for each blockchain. That's why I like Top Hat, which is number one on Solana with 4,000 plus agents. That's why I like Hold Station, number one on ZK Sync. That's why I like Sui AI, which is number one on Sui, which is basically the second hottest blockchain, and that has massive institutional acceptance and adoption, and it's being pushed and promoted through every circle you can imagine. So those are the three leading ones, and they're all valued at a fraction of virtual. So I have no interest in buying virtuals at five. I don't care, even if it hits 100 billion. Because if it hits 100 billion, all of these derivative meta projects that are related to it are all going to benefit immensely. And the return will be considerably higher than 20x. Yeah. So no, that's how I see it. You can debate this, but I see it. So I'm very bullish about AI agents because they have actual practical use. Like there's nothing better than having something that's fully autonomous that is being operated in a decentralized way. The problem, though, is when you look at AI launchpads right now, most of them are still running on centralized servers. So they're not even functioning as, they're not even running on decentralized blockchains for the most part. Um, this whole DeFi AI movement, it's cool. It's awesome. As that was always my dream, was like to be able to just have one easy to understand chat interface that automates all the functions. And you're like, I want you to buy this token. Take any capital you need across these wallets and buy this asset for me, and DCA in at AB from this price to this price, and only allocate 3% of my portfolio to it and stretch it out over the course of 30 days. And I'm only willing to accept 5% slippage, and and then just do that. Like imagine just being able to write that into a paragraph and then click send, and then the system will take care of everything autonomously. And no government and no centralized company or server failure, nothing can shut it down. It'd be completely decentralized. Just imagine, that would be amazing. So that's why I like AI agents. Now let's go through other questions. I'm as clear as mud on what to do on Meteora with CRISPR before Saturday. I am as clear as, okay, good. So if you're clear, you're good, brother. It's perfect, man. And Mahad, nice to see you here, man. Okay, if you had to choose one or two altcoins for long term, few years, hold it. I wouldn't hold any of these long term. I'd only Bitcoin. And even Bitcoin, I would be apprehensive in holding it beyond the market cycle peak where you feel like it's already peaked above 115, 130, 150, because I don't want to experience 70% drawdowns. I'm done with that. I've learned my lesson. I even regret doing that the last market cycle because being Bitcoin heavy wasn't enough for me. I wanted to be. You should be stable coin heavy when you feel like Bitcoin has topped, and then shifted into altcoins if you have an opportunity to, and then sit in stable coins and sit in some capital in the bank. There's nothing like actual cash that's available in your bank account. Um, but for the duration of this market cycle, I would say BTC, ETH, Sol, Doge, Sui. I think Say protocol is also very, very promising. The problem with Say is it's not outperforming anything. It's not outperforming anything. So I don't see why I would buy this, but this is close to a triple bottom here, right? Um, this is very much like a bottoming pattern, 7 month bottoming pattern. And so this could be another one that you could potentially buy that I'm sure the buzz will come back to it, and it's valued at like only a few $1 billion. Um, I like Caspa, but that's the same. Like, where is Caspa? It should be here. Oh, wait, there's one. See, it's not even really listed anywhere, and it also hasn't been outperforming Bitcoin. So it wouldn't make any sense to buy this long term until we have a very clear reversal. Um, but those are the only ones I would hold, and like that are large cap. And then mid cap, I ranked my positions for specifically to answer these types of questions, right? So if you go to my portfolio, and I have to update this, but you already have my recent positions. But you see, what was I most bullish on? And I did this before the 100x. I was most bullish on Sui AI, right? And with all things considered, the macro interest, the valuation at being like literally, it was like 4 million when I first posted it. It was less than five. And then it crashed down to half a million, bought a little bit more. I urged everyone, like, this is the best buy opportunity. Some people bought it. And then it went up all the way to 64 million, right? Now it's hovering at 45 million. So I still believe that this is the highest return relative to risk. Top Hat is another one that I feel very strongly about. I also feel very strongly about Hold. Like these are the ones that I feel high conviction in. Sweet is like literally less than a million at this point, right? So I don't see how we wouldn't be interested in this. So to me, this is the number one trading bot on the Sui blockchain. It also has one for the Ripple blockchain, so this is interesting to me. Um, Clank Fun and Tiny Labs, I love them. I just think it's like an interesting change. It's an interesting um, launch pad kind of concept that may or may not succeed, but I love to have something that is related to the base blockchain. So I have a lot of exposure on the base blockchain. And then I like Opus. I think Opus is one of the most undervalued AI because they're the ones who actually trained Goatse. So, the truth terminal, like they literally trained the model that was used to be able to do all of that. And I think that's impressive in itself. Um, so many of these are only valued at a million. So to me, they provide like massive potential returns. Um, I think, yeah, I think that's probably good for now. Now let's go through the next questions. This is the one I've discussed before. Can you review Hello Labs project recent announcement for their expansion? Oh, you're not clear on what to do. Okay, so that's a very important typo, bro. Okay, let me explain it to you then. Okay, so for CRISPR AI, the how you participate and what you do. So CRISPR AI is one of the biological like research DAOs that's focusing on using CRISPR technology via AI to be able to help with like genetic engineering and like editing, et cetera, right? So they're doing the company, the DAO that owns CRISPR is called Nucleus DAO, and they're doing a DAOS Fund fundraising. Okay, so DAOS Fun is the same one that I mentioned in my long audio. And how it works is think of it as like a decentralized hedge fund. Okay. The largest being AI16Z. Okay. Now, other ones are like a Monica Brands, R&D Terminal, right? Drugs, Big Pharma AI. Now, AI16Z is literally at 1.6 billion. Think about this. How incredibly irrational this pricing is. It only has 25 million in assets under management. When I last looked, it didn't even trade once. That 25 million came all from airdrops. It literally came all from airdrops. They only raised 439 SOL initially, but they came from airdrops. And think of the multiple. Think of how high. Just do 1.6 billion. That's unbelievable. So 1.6 billion divided by 25 million, right? 64. It's running at a 64x multiple. And most people don't even understand that the fund expires on October. They don't even understand the fund concept, the framework, what's involved, whether or not they have fund termination or fund rollover. They don't even care. They're just, I could see this potentially marking the top. I swear, mark my words. I believe that when these funds start expiring and you have billions of dollars lost, I wonder what's going to happen at that point. Like when people realize, oh wait, this fund is not rolling over, and there's going to be no continuation, and they're just going to dispense out the initial capital out, and they get, you know, they get 1 divided by 64x, right? They do one, they get like, wait, 0. Yeah, literally get like less than 1% of what their valuation was. So they hold an asset in their wallet that's worth $1 billion, and they only get 1% of that. Just think about like how much of an adverse effect that would have. What was it, October 24th? Is that what it was? Yeah, that could potentially mark the top. That'd be very interesting. Anyways, so CRISPR AI, new DAO, they're going to run a fund through DAOS Fun. Problem is that you can't participate in DAOS Fun without a VIP invite list. So if you're not on the VIP invite list, or if you don't have an invite code, you can't participate in any of the rounds. The only way, this is what I loved about what CRISPR AI is doing with Nucleus, is they are asking you to lock 100,000 CRISPR and the equivalent of that in SOL, which is like basically 5 SOL. So it's like 5 or less, right? Like it's almost 2.5. And basically it's like $600, right? So around $600. And if you lock that into a liquidity pool on the Meteora exchange, which is this, right? You have your Meteora exchange, meteora.ag, and all you do is you lock the liquidity, and there's a guide here that I sent. And then once you lock it, you then burn it. So you're locking those funds with the liquidity protocol. The agent, the project's not even able to access it anyways. And then by doing that, you get a transaction ID, and with your transaction ID, you go to the form and you submit your form. That's it. So this form here, you click start, you paste in your name, your email address, your transaction ID, and then how you're willing to contribute positively towards the program. And then you guarantee a VIP whitelist spot on the DAOS Fund when it runs, which is going to be announced next week, they claim. And that's it. But from what I've seen, I think it could be monumental opportunity, because I've seen, because they're only raising 100,000. Think about that. They're only capping it to 500 SOL, and they're restricting the supply to 1% per person, and which means that if if in the off chance that their initial valuation goes from 100,000 to 20 million, like you literally just think about that. Like you've literally just done a 200x. Just 200x. Now, I don't think it's going to hit 20 million like in one day, but I don't see why it wouldn't hit a million, 5 million, 10 million. I don't think it's going to surpass big pharma AI, but it could. So I'm curious that. And I'm trying to clarify with them when I'm asking them, yeah, I see. So you're just paying for a ticket. So by you locking those funds, you're locking in a ticket to be able to then buy funds on DAOS. That's how it works. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much that's the plan of attack. That's the goal. Is to just get the ticket. You want a ticket to the race, and then once you get in, then you can speculate however you want. All right. Now let me go back. Hopefully that answers your questions about that. Now, hello project. Yeah, I've looked at this, man. And I know you're disappointed with the pricing, but if you remember what I said to you about this project, I love this project. I think it was going to do an incredible job in terms of like its killer whales program and its broader broadcasting TV ambitions. But my concern with it is whether or not there was going to be like macro interest across the entire crypto sector, and it's just hard, right? It's hard to get that type of community engagement. Um, and let me see if I can try to pull up. There's one here. Yeah, I see. Remember, like I've been tracking this, and it's down 93%. I mean, that was the bottom, though. That was the bottom. So, I mean, this is like a quadruple bottom here. So, I'm going to tell you exactly the same thing I told you last time. I don't see any reason why you would sell this now, unless you absolutely do not want to experience this potential pullback all the way down to cycle low. I just don't see why you would try to sell something that's down 93% if you truly love it and believe in it as much as you do. 'Cause I know how much you believe in this project. So it's just not the time to sell. It's not the time to sell. It's just like I'm down. Some of the memes I have are down like 95%, 98%. I'm not going to sell them now. Like, this makes no sense logically for me to do that, you know? Um, yes, brother, you said it needs to stay above 0.015 and it just did. Yeah, man. Thank God it did. God, that was such a critical level. Yeah, I see, because I marked this bottom, this white one when I marked it when you first asked me this. I feel like you asked me this so long ago. Why does it feel like it was like half a year ago? I think it might have been. And it's yeah, this exact same level I marked, it keeps hovering up and down. It's just not the time to sell, man. If It's just not the time to sell. So hopefully that answers it, brother. It's still 8% of your portfolio, really? Oh, you know, that's how I feel like with Beeple. Like so disappointed with them. Like what is going on with you guys? Why I don't understand this. Like this to me, there's no way in hell I would ever consider selling this right now. Why would I sell? Okay, that's very good that you've sold 30% near the top. That's excellent. That makes me feel a lot better that you did that. But why would I look to sell Bebo? It's the same exact phenomenon. They are one tweet away from it exploding like 10x overnight in my eyes. And then Connor, who's like a good friend and one of the alpha leaders, and who's driving Blockcircle Indonesia with us with Agnes, he mentioned something very interesting. He was like, "I wonder if Beeble's team is like purposely keeping the price down and deliberately suppressing it by not tweeting and not engaging. Because it makes no sense. Like, how could you possibly go and raise another round of $3 million as being the Web3 decentralized social media platform? And you're raising that capital from like huge backers, right? Like literally Samsung, Digital Currency Group, which is one of the first investors in Coinbase, Crypto Banter, which has like a million plus subscribers and followers. How could you do all of these things and all of a sudden just then not post on social media? And I've been using their social media app. I've been using their app and it works. It works well. And I've been asking them like, why aren't you guys posting on social media? But they're not answering. And I've also asked them through here, right? You can see, I'm showing you exactly, and they're not responding. They're also not even reading the messages. Can you please post on Twitter some updates? I'm asking them, like, why aren't you posting? Makes no sense to me why you haven't posted in 3 months. So they must be potentially doing it that way, you know? Um, why would they logically suppress the price so much? They must just be accumulating at these levels. Like it's worth like 1 million now. How could you be backed by that many venture capitalists and private equity firms and only be valued at 1 million? Makes no sense to me. So this is not something I would want to sell. And my theory on this is exactly how I feel about the memes that are down 98%, 99%. Makes no what am I going to get? Like $20 from this, from what's left? Like, it's not. Like, as a matter of principle, I refuse to sell my position. Um, that's how I see it. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on the fuel project, but also maybe on the chart. Even though it doesn't have much price history, Messi has been nonstop. Yeah, I've been seeing he's been pushing it like crazy. Fuel, where did I have my fuel? I had it here. Just watching that. Fuel. There it is. So, oh, this is interesting. Seeing a potential reversal here, though, man. So, yeah. It's sitting at support here for the last 16 hours. Looks like it really wants to hold this level. Probably if you check Messi's like Twitter right now, he's probably just been pushing it like crazy, like a bottom has been formed. But yeah, this chart is very concerning to me. Definitely don't like the way it looks. But you just have to maintain this level. If you lose on 190 million, look at this. The next logical landing spot is 160 and then all the way down to 100. But you also got to consider that it's down 75%. I don't know. I wouldn't. That 420 maybe is just not. 460 is not even realistic, but it's down about 30% from 320. It's really got to maintain this level, brother. If it doesn't, I would be very careful because it broke the diagonal trend. It's broken multiple levels of support on its way, collapsing back down to 190, and you pretty much just have open air all the way down to 150. That's how I see it. Is it even marked as starting to be oversold here? Let me see. And yeah, it really has been. It's been hitting oversold for a while here. I would think a bottom would be in very soon, for God's sakes. But if macro crypto fears continue to worsen, this could absolutely stay at like RSI below 20 for a few weeks, no problem. And this will very likely just roll over and go down to 150, 140. So I would be careful here. But I just I don't know. I'm not personally supportive of the idea to just panic sell at this point. I think I'm just personally holding my positions that I like. that I have conviction in, and then I've been rotating capital around, and I've closed a few positions so that I feel are not as attractive as new narratives that I've been focusing a lot more capital and time on. Um, so like setup protocol, I like, and I've kept it because I do believe in chain abstraction and bridging and cross chain bridging, and I believe in what they're doing. But at the same time, it's also like exceptionally difficult to sell. So that definitely is not helping. But um, as much as I like router protocol, I don't want to really have a strong position in router protocol because there's, and same thing with symbiosis. I don't know if cross chain abstraction, as much as I love it and as much as I believe it's a significant problem, especially with AI agents and AI DeFi AI, it could do well, but right now it's having a really hard time picking up and getting interest. You know, so like if I look at, I don't know if it's going to be a narrative that people are interested in. You know, um, I just don't know if there's enough volume. Like, see, it's just not. People are just not that interested. It's the same thing I feel about layer two technologies. As much as I absolutely love them, I don't know if they can command the same amount of interest and like buzz and like that sexiness that you're looking for in terms of a project that's going to do well valuation wise. Um, I don't think anyone's ever ever thought, oh well, I want to bridge assets to this blockchain because I really want to have funds there. I think you just use whatever blockchain's available to you, and then you bridge when you need to, and that's it. It's as simple as that. And you have so many bridging solutions that are available, like that. I don't see why you wouldn't just use RocketX, Portal, or Synapse, or Aptos Bridge, or I would prefer this one, but I like Layer Zero, but I'm not a big fan of Aptos anymore. Symbiosis is excellent. Like Connext Bridge is excellent. I don't think people care what bridging service they use. I don't think they care too much about um, like I want to use this layer two or this layer one. They just want to be able to try to find which asset they want to buy and accumulate, and they're going to do whatever is needed to get to that point. So I've sort of lost some faith and confidence that some of these projects are going to do very well in the future. So I've shifted capital around. What else? Like Swag, I love. It exploded recently, so I sold um, some position in it. I've kept my pretty much kept everything else. I'm not going in heavy with hype, so I opened my position, tiny position. I didn't put any more in, just waiting. I'm still the challenge with hype and hyperliquid is that they it's not globally accessible. It's not ubiquitously available. So if it's not ubiquitously available, it's not globally accessible. Some of the buzz has faded. It's already up, 8x since the airdrop. I don't I'm not sure how well it's going to do in the future. This is the challenge with it. The fact that you can't even access it is the problem. Like I've been using Hyperliquid for years, but I still can't access it natively, right? Still, when you go to the website, for God's sakes, look what you see, right? You were accessing our products from a restricted jurisdiction. How can I be in a G8 nation, in the United States, in Canada, and you can't access any platform that has any kind of perpetual futures? This is the market leading layer one, pseudo layer two DEX for perps, and I can't access it. So to me, this is what scares me a little bit of Hyperliquid. But that aside, I feel like this could absolutely hit $100 to $200. There's no reason why Hyperliquid can't go to 50 to 100, 150 billion valuation, especially when the Hyper EVM expands and centralized exchanges start tapping into Hype blockchain as its on ramping solution to DeFi. I think would be incredible. Imagine centralized exchanges pooling liquidity directly from HyperLiquid and executing its trades on HyperLiquid to complement its existing centralized infrastructure. That to me is what gets me hyped about HyperLiquid so much, you know. But those are my concerns about it. Are there any questions in the chat? Anything you guys want me to go through? Let me go through this one. Hi, Basil. Assuming total market cap goes to 8 to 10 trillion, then what percentage growth do you expect your current portfolio to go up as per Blockcircle Excel sheet? Current, what your lowest expectation and your highest guesstimate. Lowest estimate target is 10x. Realist main target. Yeah, that's a good question. I like this question. I would say my goal would try to be actually very similar to what you wrote. I would try to 10x the portion of the portfolio that is not Bitcoin, not Doge, and not Solana, um, and not Ethereum. So these four, I don't see why we can't 10x the portion of the portfolio that is outside of these four. I don't see why SUI can't go 8 to 10x, 7 to 10x, why SUI AI can't go 10x, NavX can't go 10x, Top Hat, Clank Fund. Every single one of these were deliberately picked by design to be less than 100 million. And every single one of them is less than 100 million. Yeah, except for Hype. But that position is tiny. So thank God I didn't buy any more. But I would have bought more with Doge. So in the end, it probably the same exact impact. But all of these coins are less than 100 million except for the top five, right? So Bitcoin, Doge, Sol, SUI, and ETH, these ones. So the other ones, I don't see why they're not able to 10x, 10 to 20x. I would say worst case 10x, best case 20x. I don't know, 30x. That would be amazing. Okay. Also curious, what is your safest 5 coin hold for 10x from this point forward, assuming the market reaches 10 trillion approximately? I answered that already. So I definitely showed you all the rankings and so forth. Still accumulating or pausing across crypto. What do you think of ETH prospects? I've talked about that. I think mostly answered those questions already about how I'm feeling about it. I haven't stopped accumulating. I haven't slowed down at all. Because we don't know when the US Federal Reserve is going to suddenly say that they have sufficiently seen the economy contract that now they're going to go and pivot into quantitative easing. They're going to start printing, or they're going to stop selling so much. That's all we're looking for. One of those conditions to be met, and I will be very happy. And suddenly the sentiment's going to shift on the flip of a coin, and it'll just be sudden overnight change, right? And I want to be ready for that. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have a deeper correction. So if I'm looking at like the S&P 500 in the past, you know, I also don't want to exit this upwards range here since August, and like we're already closed below it. That's not a good sign. That doesn't make me happy because I don't want to go back down here, but that seems to be very likely. This is clearly the very likely landing spot for the S&P 500. You know, and if we're in this range now and we're just going to revisit this level, not the end of the world, but that means Bitcoin is definitely going to breach and go below 92,000. So if that's the case, then I can't even imagine what's going to happen with Ethereum. I mean, Ethereum's already bottomed, I would say, at 1900, even lower, right? It hit, yeah, it went even lower, all the way down to. This was a wick though, but I mean, like the yearly bottom was 1900. I could absolutely see a scenario where it revisits like 2800 to 2500 as a worst case. That's how I see it. So um, I do have some concerns about Ethereum, and I've talked about those at length, and I've left every audio under the sun. So my position hasn't changed on it. Um, I still believe in it long term. I still believe it's going to do well and it'll survive. But yeah, it's in rough shape right now. Could you do a search for a topic across all of Marcos? So we have a lot of threads. Oh, so yeah, all you do is go to any channel, go to the search function, and then say, let's say if you want to search for something I wrote about something, you say from Basil Ismail, and then you say hype. Look for the word, and then you can say new, old, or relevant. And then in new, you can see every single time I mention the word hype. And if you don't want that, and you want to say anytime I mention the word hyper instead of hyper or like HyperLiquid, you can see every single time I mentioned it. Or if you want to say mentions, and then you can say anytime that this user has been mentioned, you can also say that. And other things you could use is they have a lot of functions, you see? So has before. Hi, Baba. Sorry. You can say in. So that's what, so you can say, hi, bubbies. You can say from, you can say, Zini, Baba, I'm in a meeting. Can you close the door, please? You say in trades, right? Click it so it activates. And then you can use the word DAO. And then you can look for the every single time that I've mentioned the word DAO in the trades channel, or you can say from Crypto Hunter. But when you write Crypto Hunter, you have to click his name. Then it activates, and then you can search. See? So that's how you do it. Sorry, I need to get him out of here. But all right, Zane, come on. Come on. You're meeting, Come on. Okay. Love you. Talk. We'll play later, okay? I'm done here, I promise. Want to play when I'm done? Give me hugs. After. You play up? You go play outside after? Hey guys, sorry about that. So I think that answers. What do you think about the rise of 10-year Treasury now into 2025 implication? I think I've talked about that. I didn't talk about specifically the 10-year, but it's obvious. You don't want government bond 10-year yields rising, right? You obviously don't want gold rising per se. You want, because usually there's like there's a very countering response. So whenever you're seeing treasury yields rising, you typically have a pretty steep pullback on Bitcoin, right? Another thing I was going to mention, and then the same thing with the DXY. So you don't want, these are mostly inversely correlated. You can see you want interest rates preferably declining when you have Bitcoin rising, but that's not always the case. Like you see back in April, interest rates were declining and Bitcoin was also declining, right? So it's not a very clear direct relationship or correlation there. But the DXY, oh, I wanted to talk about this. So the DXY is generally, it's favorable for Bitcoin when you have the US dollar index declining, not on an incline like it's been, but it's very much hitting resistance here. It's hitting very strong multi-year resistance. And if we break above that, it's very likely going to slow down and stop around 112 to 114. To me, is a worst case scenario. I don't know if we're ever going to get that high, but it's definitely a possibility. We're already actually at a multi-decade resistance. I mentioned that too in the chat. We're already at multi-decade resistance now. So I'm not too worried about this. The problem, though, is that Trump has very strong ambitions for what he wants to accomplish when he becomes president again. And a lot of his ambitions involve imposing strict tariffs and by doing that, he's going to place pressure on inflationary variables. This is the problem. So some of what he's going to do is inadvertently going to place inflationary pressure on the entire macroeconomy. And if it does that, then that's not very good because that would mean, I mean, that could be potentially the straw that breaks the camel's back and finally pushes the Federal Reserve to pivot and protect themselves. But that's where the jitters and the concern and the anxiety is coming from right now is if he's going to have strict immigration rules, then that could potentially make things a lot more difficult and a lot more expensive to process and manufacture and distribute and commercialize. And he's also saying that the US interest rate is too low or is too high. But the challenge with him is that he's only controlling the fiscal policy and the US Federal Reserve is controlling the monetary policy and that they're separated by design. But I'm still bullish going in because he's very strong pro crypto. He's bringing in like an entire deregulation mindset. He's bringing in a cabinet that is very strong pro crypto, and the pseudo vice president and Musk is going to have such a strong influence on him as well to be open minded towards crypto. So this is one of the variables we talked about that. So I really would like to have this go down. Um, yeah. So the fact it's 109, yeah, I'm not surprised. Okay, now other questions. Can you show us how you're seeing or visualizing BTC and ETH by institutions? Yeah, there was a page that I like when you go to this one, BTC TF fund flows, but there was another one that's even better that covers Ethereum too. And I even tweeted about them too. Like this. Far side, this is it. So far side, if you scroll down, you'll see the chart. See? So this is BTC on top and then ETH. And you can see it's exactly what I said. It just continues to break all-time high levels in terms of cumulative flow. So we're almost at 40 billion now. And then yeah, I mean it's looking solid. Not something to worry about there. And then ETH flows, same. It looks great. I don't see anything particularly concerning. Asset loss since conversion. This is when they converted from a trust to an actual standalone spot-based ETF. Yeah, it's because the market's been contracting. ETH has been in rough shape. It just cannot hold 4,000. That's why I keep talking about 4,000. It's every single time we hit it, we go back down. We have such a strong correction. Okay. All right. Let's wrap this up. Last question. Can you voice over the latest on Alpha Hunter suite of tools and one of the two things that you would suggest be part of your daily workflow? I don't think there's anything else for me to say. I mean, to me, the Alpha Hunter is like, I think if I have more time, I would like trade these trades even more. Like to me, these wallets, especially the ones that are power traders and whales, not influencers, right? Because the influencers, I haven't tracked their performance that strictly, but the whales and power traders, some of them are like sensational. Like one of the whales, he's been sitting on multi-million dollars worth of cash. See him, this JBPW, I think it's wallet number 2. So he sold in late November and he's just been sitting. He's been sitting 94, right? 93 to 94% of his portfolio is just in cash. Genius. So definitely would want to keep a track on how he deploys this capital and how he uses it. That in itself is hugely informative. It's also important to remember that these are all people that did tremendously well on being early investors on many of these projects, right? So keep an eye on them, track them, like understand exactly what they did so well to see. And then also you can look at their early alpha trades, but most importantly, their current holdings in a lot of these projects themselves. We pulled them out. So some of the early investors in like Chill Guy and Memes AI and QB and Doge, but this is the Department of Governmental Efficiency Doge, right? And CryptoZar. But some of these influencers are also KOLs that are participating in pump and dumps, and they're shilling their own projects, and they're just driving cabal ownership, right? Which is not what I like. So that's why I would be careful. Them being on the Alpha Hunter list for traders does not mean that they're very successful, profitable traders, and it doesn't mean that they're honest, hardworking, you know, whales. It just means that they're influential, and when they post, usually will at least drive a momentary pump, you know. Um, and some others are following these wallets too, so it's important to keep an eye on them. And then when you're looking at the tokens to be listed, this is hugely valuable because you can get a very good idea of like look how incredibly bullish Bitstamp is on RL. They're posting every single denominated Y pair. So it's RL USD and then the Y is XRP, USD, USDT. So every denomination. Cookie is going to get listed on Bybit. It looks like it was just listed this morning. And then you get such a good idea of everything that's in the pipeline, of what's going to be pumped, what's going to be um, listed on prominent tier one, tier two, tier three exchanges. And then you can track. And then what's also very powerful here is you can see the history. So like not here from this tokens listed. You say in tokens listed under, and you say virtual. I love this. I love that I can see exactly when it was first listed. So it was first listed on OrangeX. Then it was listed on crypto.com. So crypto.com is not easy. It's not easy to list on crypto.com or crypto.com futures. So this is very interesting. Then it gets listed on Bybit. So this is unusual. The fact that they usurped and skipped MEXC is interesting, you know? These are all these are very clear telltale signs that there's something intriguing here about this project. You know, and we could have caught it, and some of us did catch it. I didn't buy virtual early, but I bought the ecosystem. But other people bought virtual early and did like 100x on it, which is amazing. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much. And then the biggest thing is the alpha tokens, but that's not released yet. That's in progress. That's in development. That's in prototype testing. Um, but I'm super hyped about that. That to me is something that I'm like incredibly excited over the top about. And then there's tokens airdrop, and I haven't really spent a lot of time writing out what I've been farming because I haven't really been focusing a lot of time and effort on it because I've been focusing more on research and development and trading. Um, but you could see how powerful and profitable the airdrops have been. If you, I mean, look at the ones that we did, like Magic Eden and HyperLiquid, Linea, like those did well. ZK Sync did well, but the ones I had marked HyperLiquid like more than a year ago, and it was on the list. You know, Eigenlayer, like these all did well. Margin Fi, Camino, those all did well. But some of these are not tokenized yet, so they're definitely worth taking a look at. You know, and even the ones that are tokenized, they'll do multiple rounds of point accumulation. Um, but yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. All right, guys, are there any other questions before we close? I'll ask. There's still some of you here, so if there's any other questions, please ask now or forever hold your peace. No? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Love you all, and let's keep building and pushing, and let's do it. You're very welcome, brother. All right, guys. Take care. Bye bye. You're welcome. You're welcome, man.